I am Mark Stewart, and I want to talk about truth in environmental protection. This is generated due to a question, a very good one, asked at the Concord Climate Change Forum this past week. I was there for a question of many candidates, and the one that was asked twice over, but not answered very sufficiently, was how does a new president assure Americans of acting on valid, undistorted information when considering environmental policy? It was the best question asked, and I was there the whole day. Sadly, none of the stage candidates replied directly. Here's my response. The answer to how any government official or agency acts on environmental science is 1, warily, carefully, and 2, minimally. I'll explain both. Wary is warranted because of competing claims by well-intentioned scientists who do methodologies differently, come up with different results. So even without a push from them, we have a conflict of what to do. There's also the wariness that there are scientists and non-scientists who are not well-intentioned. They have agendas, and they go beyond just environmental stewardship. Their agendas may include labor, more jobs in certain places at certain high rates. You heard that at the forum, actually, from a surrogate for Bernie Sanders, Tom Steyer himself. So science should not be clouded by other agendas. Here's the minimal aspect. Minimal government is warranted because the federal government will mess up. There's no large federal project that runs as intended. Almost all have disappointed. So to put environmental protection in a bigger way than ever into the hands of those who bungle, who are influenced by bad outsiders, and who are, even when capable and have sincere motives, they're too remote as big government distant officials to be as careful as small governments. Who does better than big government? That would be local governments and private organizations and individuals. Don't dismiss us. Entrusting environmental protection to the Fed in a way diminishes the efforts, better efforts, that we, the rest of us, our local governments, our private organizations and individuals can do. Why? Look, information is disseminated easily to individuals and to small governments that can post signs, put out newsletters about how to recycle, where to go, what not to dispose of. You pay attention to those, in part because they're your neighbors. If you're the one outlier who doesn't conform, you're ostracized. This isn't government force. This is social goodness having a way with everybody who'd like to improve our environment. And that's probably 98% of people. Now, some don't want to do it at a big cost. But once again, federal almost ensures big cost. So that maybe that's 28%, maybe that's 58%. But doing things economically, once again, is done without going big. Unlike Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, my goal is go small. Small will have more impact. Small will get things done faster. In Vermont, almost everyone brings cloth shopping bags from their car into the supermarkets now. This is not because of any government force. This was just suasion. We're now reducing our use of plastic straws. We now are doing better, less use of plastic diapers. No government force needed. And remember, when government does use legislation, the people in government are still pawns of big companies that work around legislation. There's a large firm in Merrimack, New Hampshire. It puts toxic materials into our groundwater every month, but legally. They violate no state law. It's been engineered to help them and companies like them. You can't get around that when you use big state and federal government. action is more easily taken by local governments. Almost all citizens trust local governments more than their feds. The federal government, look, the congressional approval rating, 19%. But that's because local are closely tied to our individual interests. Where projects demand statewide or even interstate alliances, okay, that's where larger government might be needed. But start locally and stay local as long as possible. Now, the federal government is needed in one area, working internationally, okay? Even here, though, its efforts could pale in comparison to individual efforts. We know the biggest polluters are China and India. They're also some of the best manufacturers of stuff that we want. So we can and should have a green scorecard where individuals can know what manufacturers use subcontractors abroad that are environmentally good and environmentally despoiling. We can keep score and we can withhold our money from purchasing things that are high on the bad list. Chinese and Indian companies are going to reform if sales to America, sales to Europe are falling due to our not buying those who despoil. That is citizen action at its finest, working even internationally. You can do it internationally, we can certainly do it statewide, and we can certainly do it locally. Please trust us before we trust big government. As for how we, at the decision-making level, get good scientists, you need overlap of multiple studies overseen by multiple groups to come to what's hopefully unanimity. You don't get unanimity, you look for bias and why somebody or some group are outliers. You act in the most democratic, therefore, of fashions. That's kind of the opposite of how EPA at times has acted, with a regimented, I know best because I'm the EPA administrator. When you have multiple layers of science and multiple layers of oversight, you've got the best chance for making the best decisions. Thanks again for asking. I'm Mark Stewart.